What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Make It or Break It Monday, the show that helps you get your head right so you can start your week right. First of all, shout out to Mr. Jeff Emmerling for calling me out for doing a bunch of videos in my car. Thank you, Jeff. It's just a lot easier without dogs barking sometimes. So, speaking of dogs, though, if you guys don't know, I have two dogs, Riley and Bo. Riley's my first dog. Got him about a year after Monique and I got together. And he's 12 now. They're both Maltese Yorkies, like 15 pounds of fury. They're awesome. We love them. But Riley's actually been through a lot in these last little over a week. At the end of the week before last, we take him to Banfield, the pet hospital, for their checkups and all that other stuff. And he's just been acting funny. So we're like, all right, well, I'll just take him in. I thought it just needs to be like his anal glands expressed or something like that, like typical dog stuff. But it was nothing. I was like, okay. So we took him back home. And then still over the next couple days, he's just still acting lethargic, not really want to move around. And then it got to a point where he's not even wanting to like really eat or drink or anything. So I took him in again, and then they did a couple things, but basically said he was fine. And I was like, okay. So we took him back home again, and then the next day I was just like, he is not coming out from like where our bed is. He's definitely not eating or drinking. His like gums and tongue started to turn white, so it got me like really scared if there's like something wrong like with his blood. So I rush him back in. They do a bunch of blood work. They take some x-rays, and then they find a mass inside of him, all over his spleen, and they think on his liver. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. He's like acting perfectly healthy, like not even just like a couple days before this. So I take him from there after all the blood work and all those other tests, and they say, hey, we're going to take him to this specialty facility, emergency, to potentially have an ultrasound and some other stuff done. And then so I end up rushing him over there, and they get him in pretty quick, and they just hold him. I have to drive home, and they call me back, and they're just like, hey, it looks like it's all over his spleen, a couple different spots on his liver. We can remove his spleen, but there's no way we can actually remove that much of his liver. So they're basically like, don't really have a lot of options. You can just make him comfortable, but he's probably not gonna make it. And I'm just like, he was smiling in the car when we were driving him to the emergency room. I was like, no way is this guy done. Like, he's so resilient. And I was just like, what is going on? So I ended up staying on the phone with the surgeon doctor for asking as many questions as possible. And that's what I learned out of this whole thing. You need to ask questions and actually figure out what options are, because it ended up coming out to, well, if you guys want, you can do an ultrasound, and we'll have to keep him overnight, and it's going to be all this expensive fees to keep him over. And I was just like, you know what? I saw him before that. I know how he is. I was just like, just do the ultrasound, see if it's just the spleen or not, and if you can actually go in and have surgery. Like, we'll figure everything else out. But until you tell me that there's nothing else you can do, then we need to go try whatever we can. So they go ahead. They ended up getting him in. They thought it was not going to be until like 8 p.m. They ended up doing it at like 4 p.m., which is awesome. So they do the ultrasound, and doctor calls me back, and she's just like, man, I really like it when I'm wrong. And I was just like, why? She's like, well, it looks like it's primarily just his spleen. We don't know for sure, but he's cleared to go in for surgery. And I was like, okay, well, if that's what it is, just do it. So they prepped him, got him ready. He goes in, has his spleen removed, and while they were in there, they found one small spot on his liver, but it didn't seem like it was anything troublesome, so they took 2 biopsies just to make sure of his spleen and his liver, and that was it. The surgery went amazing. He's doing fantastic. He's only been out of surgery for 3 days, and this guy's like already wanting to like be like himself, so I had to buy like a little playpen kind of thing just to keep him contained right now. But he is recovering amazing. And I wanted to tell you this, and I know this is a longer message than normal, but I tell you guys this because it gave me some perspective. Especially over this July 4th weekend. We're all thinking about how our country was founded and everything everybody had to go through, and how we won our independence, and reflecting on that, right? But it's funny when you have something like that, something so close to you. Like, this is my first dog, like he's my boy, and having to go through all that. And if I wouldn't have asked questions, and if Monique and I wouldn't have been asking with the doctors, pushing to figure out what we could do, sometimes like that's it. And it made me think through how fragile life can be, because we really thought there was nothing we can do at a certain point. But it also shows how resilient we could be, especially all this COVID and everything else going on right now. Us as a race, us as a country, a world, how we evolve over time. Like, resiliency is how we get through everything. Yeah, there's all these other factors and things that go into it too, right? But like, I saw how resilient Riley really was, and what it really took for him to move forward. And all it really took was us giving him a chance. So on this holiday weekend, amongst everything else that's going on right now, guys, be resilient. Be resilient. We will get through this. We will overcome, as we always have. And hopefully this gives you guys some perspective for you to think about as well. Hope you guys are doing good. Take care.